Good afternoon, everyone. Urgency manufactured to bypass critical thinking always follows the same pattern. First comes the command, don't let this pass you by. Imperative, demanding, creating immediate sense that you're on the verge of missing something, that opportunity is fleeting, that this moment right now is crucial. And if you don't act immediately, don't pay attention, don't engage, you'll lose something valuable forever. Then comes the qualifier. It's really important. Um, Not just important, really important. Emphasis that escalates urgency. That suggests this isn't ordinary information. This is critical. This is essential. This is information that could change everything if you receive it and could cost you everything if you miss it. Finally comes the directive. You watch this now, not later, not when convenient, not after you've thought about it, now, immediately, without delay, without questioning, without pausing to consider whether manufactured urgency is actually serving your interests or someone else's agenda. And this pattern, this structure of command qualifier directive, uh, it's designed for one purpose: to short circuit your discernment, to bypass your ability to assess whether something actually deserves your immediate attention or whether you're being manipulated into giving attention to content that benefits from your urgency more than you benefit from consuming it. Because if something is genuinely important, genuinely worth your attention, genuinely valuable, it doesn't need manufactured urgency. It doesn't need commands telling you not to let it pass by. It doesn't need emphasis on how really important it is. It doesn't need directives demanding you watch now. Its value speaks for itself. Its relevance is self evident. Its importance doesn't require being told to you. You recognize it because it actually matters to your actual life rather than because someone's using psychological pressure tactics to create false sense of urgency around content that might be completely irrelevant to you. Scalp tingling with recognition of pattern I've seen 1,000 times before. Don't let this pass you by. Let's examine what's actually being said here. Let is interesting word choice, implies you have control, implies that whether this passes you by is your decision, your responsibility, your choice. Implies that if you do let it pass, if you do miss this, if you don't engage with this content right now, it's your fault, your failure, your mistake. But is it passing you by? Or are you choosing to let it pass? Is there difference between missing something and choosing not to engage with something? Is passing by necessarily negative, or could it be wise discernment, recognizing that not everything presented as important actually deserves your limited attention and energy? Because things pass by constantly: information, opportunities, content, experiences, and you can't possibly engage with everything. Can't possibly give attention to every piece of content claiming to be important. Can't possibly act on every opportunity presented as urgent. You have to choose, have to discern, have to assess what actually deserves your engagement and what you're better off letting pass by. And making that choice, exercising that discernment, recognizing that you can't do everything and therefore must be selective about what you do, that's not failure. That's wisdom. That's self preservation. That's protecting your limited resources of attention and energy from being exploited by everything claiming urgency. So don't let this pass you by isn't helpful instruction. It's manipulation. It's attempt to make you feel responsible for engaging with content, regardless of whether it's actually relevant to you. It's psychological pressure tactic designed to override your discernment and make you consume content you might otherwise recognize as irrelevant, unhelpful, or actively harmful to your well-being. And recognizing that manipulation, seeing it clearly, refusing to let urgency override discernment, that's not letting something important pass by. That's protecting yourself from exploitation. Jaw clenching, creating pressure that radiates through entire skull. Really important. Let's talk about importance. What makes something important? Relevance to your actual life, impact on your actual circumstances, connection to your actual goals and values, or just someone telling you it's important and hoping you believe them without examining whether their assessment of importance matches your own needs and priorities. Because importance is contextual, subjective, personal. What's important to one person is irrelevant to another. What's crucial for someone in specific situation means nothing to someone in different circumstances. What matters enormously at one stage of life barely registers at another stage. So, when content claims to be really important without knowing anything about you, without understanding your context, without having any information about your actual life and what you actually need, that claim of importance is suspect. That's generalized assertion, hoping to apply to enough people that some percentage will believe it's specifically important to them, even when it's not. And the emphasis, that's not providing additional information about level of importance. That's just linguistic pressure. That's using intensity of language to create sense of urgency. That's hoping emotional escalation will bypass your rational assessment of whether this content actually matters to you specifically. Real importance doesn't need that emphasis, doesn't need to tell you it's really important. Shows you its importance through relevance, through applicability, through clear connection to your actual life and actual needs. You recognize it as important because it obviously is, not because someone's insisting you should treat it as important, regardless of whether it actually applies to you. So, really important is red flag, not signal of genuine significance, signal of manufactured urgency trying to override your ability to assess actual relevance. Signal that content might not be able to stand on its own merits and therefore needs linguistic pressure to convince you to engage, despite your better judgment suggesting it's not actually worth your time. Shoulders creeping toward ears, creating tension through entire upper body. You watch this now. Present tense, second person, direct address, creating sense of personal instruction, creating feeling that someone's speaking directly to you, giving you specific directive, telling you specifically what you need to do right now in this moment. But they're not. They're not speaking to you specifically. They're broadcasting to everyone. They're using second person to create illusion of personal address while actually speaking to mass audience. They're hoping you'll feel personally instructed while they're actually using generic language that could apply to anyone consuming this content. And now, that immediacy, that urgency, that insistence that this must happen right now, cannot wait, requires your immediate attention and engagement, regardless of what else you might be doing, regardless of what might actually be more important in your actual life, regardless of whether you have time or space or energy to engage with new content right now. But who benefits from that urgency? Who profits from you watching now rather than later? Who's served by you giving immediate attention rather than waiting until you can actually assess whether this content deserves your time? Not you. You benefit from taking time, from assessing carefully, from engaging when you're ready, when you have space, when you can actually absorb and process information rather than consuming it in rushed state created by artificial urgency. The content creator benefits from now. They benefit from immediate engagement. They benefit from you watching before you've had time to question whether you should. They benefit from urgency that bypasses discernment. So, watch this now isn't instruction serving your interests, it's directive serving creators' interests. It's command designed to generate immediate engagement, regardless of whether immediate engagement actually serves you, and recognizing that seeing whose interests are actually being served by manufactured urgency, choosing to engage on your timeline rather than someone else's demanded timeline. That's not missing something important. That's exercising agency. That's protecting your attention from being exploited. Sternum feeling compressed, like chest cavity is trying to collapse inward. Don't let this pass you by. It's really important. You watch this now, all together. Complete package of manufactured urgency. Complete attempt to override your discernment through psychological pressure tactics. Complete manipulation designed to generate immediate engagement without you pausing to consider whether engagement is actually warranted. And here's what's insidious about this structure: it works. It generates engagement. It gets people to watch, to pay attention, to consume content they might otherwise skip. Because most people don't pause to analyze the linguistic patterns, don't notice the manipulation tactics, don't recognize when they're being pressured rather than genuinely informed. Most people feel the urgency and respond to it automatically, feel the pressure and comply without questioning, feel personally addressed and believe content is specifically for them rather than broadcast to everyone. And that automatic response, that compliance without questioning, that belief in manufactured urgency, that's what these tactics rely on. That's what makes them effective. That's why they're used constantly across infinite content, promising to be important, to be urgent, to be something you can't afford to miss. But you can afford to miss it, can afford to let it pass by, can afford to not watch now or ever. Because if something is genuinely important to your actual life, if it's genuinely relevant to your actual circumstances, if it's genuinely worth your attention, it won't need these tactics, won't need manufactured urgency, won't need commands and emphasis and directives pressuring you to engage immediately. It'll be obviously relevant, obviously valuable, obviously worth your time, and you'll engage with it not because you were commanded to, but because you chose to, because you recognized its value through your own discernment rather than being pressured into engagement through manipulation tactics. Throat constricting, making swallowing difficult, and breathing shallow. Let's talk about what actually happens when you don't let it pass by. When you comply with urgency, when you watch now as directed, what do you get? Content, information, maybe, or maybe just more manufactured urgency leading to more content requiring more immediate attention, creating endless cycle of urgency and engagement without ever delivering actual value, actual relevance, actual importance to your actual life. Because content that needs urgency tactics usually can't deliver on promises implied by that urgency, usually isn't actually that important, usually isn't actually relevant to most people consuming it. Usually is just content designed to generate engagement, designed to keep you consuming, designed to maintain your attention through constant manufactured urgency rather than through actual value. And if you engage, if you watch now, if you don't let it pass by, you're training yourself to respond to urgency tactics. You're reinforcing pattern where urgency overrides discernment. You're making yourself more susceptible to manipulation. You're becoming someone who can be commanded to give attention to anything that claims urgency, regardless of whether it actually deserves that attention. And that's not serving you. That's making you more exploitable. That's training you to be reactive rather than discerning. That's weakening your ability to protect your own attention and energy from constant demands claiming urgency and importance. So, what you get when you don't let it pass by isn't actually important information. What you get is training in compliance, training in responding to urgency without questioning, training in giving your attention to whoever demands it most insistently rather than whoever actually deserves it through genuine relevance and value. And that training, that pattern, that learned compliance, that costs you your discernment, costs you your agency, costs you your ability to choose what deserves your attention based on your own assessment rather than based on who's most effective at manufacturing urgency. Entire digestive system feeling unsettled like it's trying to reject something that hasn't been consumed. Here's alternative approach. Let it pass by. Don't watch now. Refuse the urgency. Not because content is necessarily worthless, but because urgency tactics are inherently manipulative and complying with manipulation reinforces pattern that doesn't serve you. Let it pass by and see what happens. Does something genuinely important get missed? Does your life become worse because you didn't engage with this specific piece of content at this specific moment? Does failure to comply with manufactured urgency actually cost you anything real? Probably not. Probably nothing changes. Probably your life continues exactly as it would have whether you watched now or never watched at all. Probably the claimed importance was overblown. Probably the urgency was manufactured. Probably letting it pass by was actually wise discernment, recognizing manipulation and refusing to participate. And if something genuinely important does get missed, if there was actual value in content, it'll come around again, will resurface, will find you through, means that don't require manipulation tactics. Because genuinely important information, genuinely relevant content, genuinely valuable insights, they persist. They don't disappear if you don't engage immediately. They remain available. They can be accessed when you're ready, when you have space, when you can engage thoughtfully rather than reactively. So letting it pass by isn't risk, isn't failure, isn't missing something crucial. It's exercising discernment. It's refusing manipulation. It's protecting your attention and agency from exploitation through urgency tactics. And that protection, that discernment, that refusal to comply with manufactured urgency, that might be more important than any content this title is trying to pressure you into watching. Because protecting your ability to choose what deserves your attention, protecting your discernment from being overridden by urgency tactics, protecting your agency from being compromised by manipulation, that's fundamental. That's essential. That's what allows you to engage with content that actually serves you rather than content that just demands your engagement. Hip bones aching like they've been locked in position they weren't designed to maintain. Don't let this pass you by. It's really important. You watch this now. I could comply with this structure. Could deliver content that attempts to justify urgency. Could provide information claiming to be so important you can't afford to miss it. Could create sense that watching this now was indeed a crucial decision that prevented you from missing something valuable, but that would be participating in manipulation, would be using same tactics I'm critiquing, would be exploiting same patterns I'm exposing, would be treating you as someone to be commanded rather than someone capable of making your own choices about what deserves your attention. So instead, I'll say this: you don't need to watch anything now. You don't need to comply with urgency. You don't need to let fear of missing out override your discernment about what actually matters to your actual life. You can let things pass by, can let urgency pass without responding, can let content claiming importance exist without engaging with it, can trust your own judgment about what deserves your time more than you trust manufactured urgency claiming everything is crucial. And that trust, that ability to let things pass by without anxiety, that confidence in your own discernment, that's more valuable than any content could be. That's what protects you from endless manipulation. That's what allows you to engage with what actually serves you rather than what just demands your engagement most insistently. So let this pass by if you want. Watch now if you choose, but make that choice consciously based on your assessment of value and relevance, based on your own priorities and needs, based on your judgment rather than manufactured urgency. Because you're not missing anything by refusing to comply with manipulation. You're protecting something: your discernment, your agency, your ability to choose for yourself rather than being commanded by tactics designed to override your better judgment. And that's actually important. That's actually worth protecting. That's actually something you shouldn't let pass by. Not this content, not this urgency, not this manufactured importance, but your own capacity to recognize manipulation and refuse to participate in it, even when that manipulation is wrapped in language of importance and urgency. Protect that. Don't let that pass by. Watch yourself now. Watch how urgency makes you feel. Watch how commands activate you. Watch how manufactured importance bypasses your discernment. And then choose based on what you notice, based on what actually serves you, based on your judgment rather than someone else's demands. That's the only thing that's really important here. Your choice, your discernment, your refusal to let urgency override better judgment. Everything else, you can afford to let it pass by. Entire skeletal structure realigning itself into configuration that feels more sustainable. Truth isn't found in others' stories, it's discovered in your own silence. No predictions, just presence. Stay curious, stay awake.